Hey everyone, it's Dr. Hayes. In today's video we're going to be talking about what is happening, what is going on with Audra Winter. So if you don't know, she is a self-published author, sort of, and why I say sort of is because due to all of this that's happened that I'm going to explain to you, is that she has basically tried to take her book off the market. If you bought it before, I'm assuming you'd already have a copy, whether digital or hardback, so I suppose she is technically still a self-published author, still a published author, but also not, since you can't actually get a copy of the book unless you already know someone who has it and you can borrow it from them. So I'm not really sure what you'd class yourself as if you publish a novel and then basically retracted it, but anyway. And I did try and get a free sample of the book on Kindle, but I wasn't able to, again, because it's been taken down and I don't know anyone with a copy of it. So I am going into this video without having read the book, but hopefully this video can try and show you what happened in regard to Audra Winter, because in all the research I was doing for this video, and out of all the videos I've done so far, this by far took me the longest to research. There does seem to be a lot of rumours going around being spread due to how big it's got, and I hope I've got all the correct information in this video so you can find out what has happened. But please note, this video isn't meant as a way to hurt Audra, it's simply as a way to try and explain everything for people who are confused, because like I said, there does seem to be a lot of rumours, and I also am aware that Audra is autistic. I am also autistic, however, just because someone is autistic that doesn't mean you can't like call them out on anything they've ever done. You shouldn't treat autistic people like myself like babies. So I just want to say that straight off. I understand where Audra is coming from, but I don't think that doesn't mean you can't talk about the situation just because she is autistic. So if I did something wrong, I would expect other people to talk about it, regardless of whether or not I was autistic. Anyway, a little bit of background first. So Audra loves to write, if her video is anything to go off, and she had been developing her fantasy novel and the world and the characters since she was a child, and she has rewritten the book The Age of Scorpius, I think about 3 times in 4 years, which is honestly insane. So I've had to mute this video playing due to the audio, but there are captions so you can see how hard she has worked on the novel. So the novel is The Age of Scorpius, and the elevator pitch she has in this video is: in a kingdom ruled by zodiacs, a young Scorpio discovers she wields a forbidden magic to alter fate and seeks to restore her sign's honour. And I'm assuming by sign's honour here she means zodiac sign, as in the sign of Scorpio for her. So off the bat, sounds cool based on that description alone. It's something I would personally read. And there is a bit more of a description on Goodreads. The Age of Scorpius and its premise became a TikTok sensation in 2021 with over 3.5 million likes and 8 million views. This highly anticipated YA fantasy debut by Audra Winter is filled with magical mysteries, foul family, forbidden powers, and strong rebellious women. The Age of Scorpius is a unique blend of the sword and sorcery, dystopian, mystery, and romantasy genres, featuring a sapphic protagonist and diverse cast of characters. Welcome to Guardian, a world where one zodiac sign determines their magic fate and social status. 18-year-old Rika Spring, probably not how you pronounce it, has been determined all her life to piece together Guardian's fragmented historical record and reverse her sign's emotionless code of honour. When she finally locates an ancient archive containing classified knowledge of Guardian's history, Rika discovers a scroll that reveals the existence of a mythological weapon and uncovers the truth behind the Scorpio code. It's nothing more than a manipulation tactic to keep Scorpio in power. Violating the code's holy orders is punishable by death, and Rika's broken the first never show emotion. Unless she wants to be murdered for displaying her anger against the law's will, she must find and prove that a mythological weapon is more than a story before she's killed by the hauntingly familiar assassin sent to stop her. So, in my opinion, the description of the novel does sound a little bit convoluted, just as like a kind of a blurb basically. But honestly, I'd still give it a go, just based off that. And as Audra talks about in this video too, her videos were going viral, which as an author, particularly a self-published one, that is literally the best thing that could happen to you. Like, a lot of authors, myself included, don't like doing marketing, but you do have to do it whether you're self-publishing, indie published, or traditionally published. You do have to market, unfortunately, the bane of my existence. And Audra really did it so well, and it's seemingly by accident. And this clip that is taken from a video that was Audra's like initial response after all this had happened shows you how successful it was.
It is bizarre to see your will to live come alive in front of your eyes, and I started to see that back in April. When I put up a pre-order listing for this book. Did not think I would sell more than 100 copies, quite honestly. And once again, I posted that pre-order listing and it took off. I didn't know what to do. I was shocked. At this time, I had started to build like a team of artists, but it was informal at first because I was like, well, all these people are working on different things for the series and I might as well put them in one group. And that is what I ended up doing with all the money that came in from this book. I ended up creating a studio, a whole creative studio with this, because I decided that rather the artists that I had brought together and the artists that I saw that were bonding over these stories that I had created, people who were falling in love with this world and with these characters as much as I did in the very beginning. And I thought that was beautiful. I had, for the first time, a sense of understanding. I've kind of gone my entire life having this as such a core, fundamental part of me, and to be able to finally be recognized and let this become who I am was incredible. Even like getting on TikTok and talking about it, a lot of times I get a lot of comments that are like, how did you market it like this? And my genuine answer to that is, I don't know. I get on here and I talk about what I've done to get to this point and the different things that I love about it. It carried me far enough to get that many sales and to get that many. And I had the sense of understanding that I had never felt in my life before. And it was moving. It was shocking. It was moving. It was the amount of emotions that I was just thrown into in a short period of time, from the time that I listed that pre-order and the time that I established an LLC was 2 weeks. All of a sudden I was going into attorneys and I was like, what do I do? Like, I was not expecting this to happen. And I think I want to build a business off of this. Like, I want to keep being an entrepreneur. I want to put everything that I have, now that I have this, let's put it into this, because this is what I want to live the rest of my life around.
So as you can see from just that clip, and we'll talk about the rest of that video that this clip is taken from later, but it was incredibly successful before the book even came out, to the point that Audra was able to establish a limited liability company, which is a huge deal for any author, but especially, in my opinion, for a self-published one. So things are going great. And the book hasn't even come out yet. It's amazing. But then the book does come out. And you may have guessed, because I'm making a video on this, it didn't go so well. As in, the book was reportedly not good, which arguably was possibly at first in one vein due to the high expectations around this, but it also seems, even if there weren't high expectations around it, like the book was genuinely not good, apparently. Like I said before, I'm unable to access any part of the book, as in the original published draft, whether the whole thing or a free sample of it, so I can't confirm or deny myself the quality of the book. I am just purely taking other people's word for it. So on Goodreads at the moment, it has an average rating of 1.61 stars, but at the time of making this video, perhaps it may have gone down by the time you're watching this. So numbers wise, not great, but let's take a look at some of the reviews. Would have been a DNF, but I made myself finish it because I wanted to give it an honest shot. To say it was poorly written, poorly developed, and poorly edited would be an understatement. She even misspelled her own made-up words. The characters are especially irksome, all flat and flawless with the exception of Avia, who is obnoxious but not nearly as bad as the other characters made her out to be. Kaya comes off like a bully and a busybody for getting involved in Avia and Reika's sister relationship, though the narrative paints her as righteous and noble. None of them are likeable, and all for the author's talk about emotions, nothing these characters feel come across as earned in any way. This is why when someone tells you your book isn't ready, you don't just dismiss it because it's not something you want to hear. It's a shame because the concept has potential, but it needed so much more time. 10 years of writing means nothing when you are barely a developed individual for most of it. Books that were written by teenagers read like they were written by teenagers, and in this case, The Age of Scorpius reads like it was written by a 12-year-old. 10 rewrites are 25. This author's writing never develops beyond the skill of a child. I'm baffled. While I commend her passion for her project, her success in popularising her book as well as building a fan base before even publishing a single word is her only impressive feat. Perhaps she should consider a career shift to literary marketing. And then another one, from the start of this book, I felt like I was missing information about context. It was almost as if I had accidentally picked up the second book in a series and not the first. In the beginning, the book lacked minor details such as basic character descriptions, example, what does Rika and her family look like, but then over-explained other things, example, Conviction Woods. This issue continued as we met more people, and I failed to connect with who they were. I thought the character development in general could have been improved, perhaps with split POVs to develop a better understanding of everyone's background. For me, this caused the twists in the book to fall flat when they would have had a greater impact if revealed later in the series, when I had more attachment to the characters. Instead, I felt like I had met someone, could barely remember who they were, then 5 minutes later was supposed to be affected by something dramatic happening to them. Because of this, I also struggle to understand the dynamic between Avia and Riker. I don't find Avia's questioning or comments to be particularly critical, although maybe we'll get a better description of their history in future books. The arguments in general felt very immature, and for me, they don't align with the character's age or traumatic history. There were some repeat sentences and awkward phrasing, which the author credits to having a neurodivergent main character. She explained this on her TikTok, but I feel as if this was the goal, then that needs to be visible to the readers who don't follow her social media. My inability to deduce that from reading the book alone indicates that it wasn't executed properly. If I'm being picky, I also have to point out my annoyance at the names in this book. Rika, Riker, Rhea made it difficult to keep track of who and what we're talking about. Most fantasy books have unique names, but then there's Chase, whose name doesn't match all the other characters. Overall, the stars I'm giving this book are for its concept and originality. There were some scenes I did enjoy, and I think the series may become more digestible as we learn more about each character. I found the plot to be intriguing, and I am curious about its potential. I think this book could have been 5 stars had it been executed differently. And another one, I wanted to love this so badly. The author really loves her world and put so much time and effort into publishing this. Her and her team deserve to be applauded for that much alone. But despite all of this, I can't deny the fact that I could not enjoy reading this. I felt no connection to any of the characters, which is my biggest draw to the story, and the plot felt both irritatingly simple and annoyingly confusing at the same time, somehow. I think the world, being as complex as it is, needed a lot more time to be explored and explained. There were so many things that weren't explained well enough that became reoccurring within the story, and as a result I barely understood what I was reading sometimes. By the last third of the book, I was just trucking through and didn't even try to make sense of the things I didn't quite understand anymore. Maybe that's just me, and I wasn't paying enough attention. The author said in one of her TikTok videos that we would need to take notes, but in my opinion, a reader shouldn't have to take extensive notes to understand your story if you're a good enough writer. You should be able to weave your world convincingly enough and effortlessly, though even enough that it captivates them. I think, in the end, this story has a lot of potential. The author is passionate and believes in herself and her story, and she shouldn't let this discourage her from improving it. I just wish she had honed her skill more before releasing this book. So that was just a selection from the Goodreads page. I will link it down below so you can go and look at more reviews yourself, but I do feel like those 3 I've just read out came across as fair reviews, and by fair I mean they weren't overly negative or rude, just in my opinion critical and constructive about what they didn't like about the novel and also ways to improve it. So to me they were kind of fair reviews. And I do understand that can be hard to take as a writer, but you do need to hear things like that in order to improve. Practice does help you improve, but also hearing about what you're doing wrong or what's not working, as a writer myself, that really does help me improve. And even though I haven't read this book, I just want to say I do agree with some of the comments, like in a general sense, that a reader shouldn't have to take notes when they're reading to understand something. Personally, I only really take notes for 2 instances when I read books. The first is for non-fiction books, because for me, I read non-fiction books to learn about whatever topic I am reading about, so I can refer back to them later as I'm learning. Writing things down as I read them personally helps me learn about them. I don't take notes to follow the plot of a fiction book. The only time I do take notes for a fiction book is when I'm reading Russian literature, because to keep track of all the characters. If you didn't know, in Russian literature, and well actually Russian society, everyone has a name, but then that name has like diminutives for it. So for example, if you had a character called Maria, that's fine, but then a page later someone calls her Masha. I'm like, oh, who's Masha? Same person. And then 5 pages later she's also called like Mashenka, and I'm like, again, who's that? Still the same person. So I take notes, I look at the diminutives just so I don't get confused, because it's a naming culture that we don't have here and that I am personally not used to. So by and large, I don't think people should have to take notes to try and attempt to work out what on earth is going on. And while I do expect there to be made up words in fantasy novels, the spelling of said words should be consistent. I am primarily a science fiction writer. There are made up words for things in my books. All the spelling of said words should be consistent. However, despite all of that, despite those fair reviews in my opinion, there were obviously some harsher reviews on Goodreads, such as terrible, boring, bad writing, scammed her readers, and I need a lobotomy. Those are not good. I would absolutely cry if I got any of those reviews about my book. So Audra did post a video that directly addressed the writing style of the book, since that did seem to be a big sticking point a lot of people were having problems with. I'll play it on the screen for you, but I've had to mute it due to the sound, but I will read out the text for you. Let's talk about narrative voice, writing style, and psychic distance. This is a book about breaking the rules and overcoming conformity. I write in first person past tense, oh my god, same. You are reading a story recalled by my narrator, Rika. This means her internal reflection and emotional response are within the prose. Rika is neurodivergent. Her thoughts may be incomplete as she quickly jumps from one idea to the next. She info dumps about the world's history, it's her special interests. She thinks in fragmented sentences and repeats the same words to process them better. To me, her expression matters more than always having perfectly structured sentences. Do you tell stories without repeating small details? Do you always think and speak with perfect grammar? No, and neither should a realistic narrator. This is not third person. Psychic distance varies with POV. You are immersed in my narrator's head. Let your narrators be poetic. Let them change the meaning of words. Let them be scattered and flawed. And while I understand in general what Audra is trying to say with how like neurodivergent brains work, because I have one, basically I do actually disagree with this, unfortunately. While I love the idea of this, if a reader can't follow what's happening though through the narrator, then I don't think it should be done. And to me, this isn't the same as unreliable narration when you have an unreliable narrator, because an unreliable narrator, for the most part, usually makes sense up until the point you find out they've been lying, whether they're, for example, traumatized and this is how they remembered things, even if it wasn't true, or they are purposely lying to you, so whether they did it intentionally or not. But it should still really make sense. There might be some inconsistencies because they're lying, so it's like a hint to you, like, no, that didn't happen like that. But by and large, it should still make sense because the narration is, a big part in what tells the story in most books. Obviously it depends on the style. Anyway, as the backlash got worse, Audra did post a response. It'll be linked down below for you because it is very long. It's very, very long. So I'm not going to play all of it in this video because this thing's going to be like over 2 hours long if I do. You already saw a section of it earlier, but if you want to watch the rest, please check the description box, but here is a version I have edited for brevity.
My name is Audra Winter. I am the author of this book. It was released about a month ago, and I have lived through the worst week of my life. If you're not familiar, I have spent a very long time working on this world that I started building when I was 12, and I'm 22 now. And throughout that time, it is the only thing that has stayed consistent in my life. It is the only thing that I have been able to lean on every single night and say, hey, at the end of the day, I have this. And I have these stories. And even if nobody else in the world likes it, I do. And I like telling these stories. Now, I hope that other people will like it, and I would love for it to bring the same joy to other people that it brought to me. And it means a lot to me. This is not just a hobby. It is a passion. It is quite literally my entire life now. As in, right now I'm sitting in my room. That is my bed next to me where I sleep, and right outside of there is my office. This is my desk that I write at. I have no escape from this, and I don't need an escape from it because it does matter to me this much. I ended up in late June, early July, packing and shipping and signing 5,000 books with a very small team, literally with my parents and 3 other people. Sarah, if you're watching this, I really appreciate you. In the last month, I've experienced more fear than I ever have in my entire life. That fear, surrounded the fact that I had put every single thing in me into this book, every single thing. And it is terrifying to ship 5,000 of these out to that many people at once, all receiving this highly anticipated, talked about thing. A couple days ago, I was up early and I was scrolling through my For You page. I unfortunately came across a video of another author talking about me. I felt something change in me that moment. The amount of heart dropping that I felt while watching that video will stick with me forever. And I opened these comments and there's tons of people all going, I was worried about this video was about me until you said these numbers. I just sat there for a little bit and went, how can you say that you were worried that it would be you? And then proceed to turn around and say that about another author. When I saw that video, I closed out the app and I went to my studio space and I said I'm fucked. Up until this point, I had very positive reader reception. I was staying aware of what people were saying, and it was way more positive than negative. But when I saw this video and I saw the things that were being said, I knew, and literally within hours, I was getting dozens of comments with pure hatred. Literally hearing some of the hardest things that I've ever been told in my life. Hearing from lots of people that you're a bad writer. Hearing from lots of people with no other thoughts other than saying that it reads like it was written by a 12-year-old, that it reads like it was middle school, that surely I was being a scam and I was doing this to scam people. It was the worst thing they ever read. I don't even want to say some of the things that I had heard, and I was getting harassed by certain people that were going on to every single one of my videos and commenting these like nasty, like really concerning, nasty things that were not constructive criticism. Here I am being told by dozens of people all at once the hardest things that I have ever heard in my life. First, it was like, I can't tell what I did wrong because I felt like I had done everything right up to that point. I had hired editors, I had done everything that I could to my best ability because I am one person. The worst thing that I can be told is it's a scam. It's a market. It's a market tactic, and it's all just, she got you all. There is something that cannot be more painful than knowing that you did everything that you possibly could and still not being good enough. And so also the terror of, am I going to lose this all? Especially when you are constantly getting comments that are like, it stops here, you're done. Like, you're not recovering from this. For a little bit, I thought that was true. It felt like the world was crushing me and that there was absolutely nothing I could do, and it was the end of the line. So I said, you know what? We're gonna go for it. We're all gonna start working on this, and we're already all building like the rest of the series together. Let's go back and do it again. Trying to do every single thing we can, right? And from this point on, I've also learned some personal lessons. I had responded to people and been like, no, I have editors. Like, I have hired these people. I have done these things. Why is this information being like spread about me? Or people who were going after very specific things that I had done intentionally in the book, and me going, well, this is what I meant with it. And the smallest things impacted everything. As authors, we should be doing better to support each other. We should be lifting each other up. We should be speaking up for each other in this time where AI is replacing a lot of our jobs and with artists. And we're not. We're becoming competitors because of this market that we have been forced into. Publishers that are quite literally, their companies, controlling how books are distributed, controlling every single thing about being an author. The way we fight it is not as indie authors bringing other indie authors down. It is lifting each other up. There's a lot of potential out there, and a lot of authors, and a lot of readers, and a lot of people who have hope in this day and age. So speak up. Act like an artist. You are allied. Authors are artists, and we have lost sense of that. We have diverged away from that into this is a job and an occupation in a market. So start becoming an artist again. Keep pushing. Because even if something is your will to live and the worst thing happens to it, you can still get back up. I'm not dying yet. I'm not dead yet. And I am not going to give up on it either. So thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great day. Welcome to the world of Guardian.
Now, personally, this is actually the first video I saw regarding this situation. I had not heard about this book prior to this. I did not know who Audra was prior to this. This was the first video I saw on this situation, and I watched it all the way through the first time, and my initial reaction, obviously without knowing anything else, was, oh my gosh, I feel absolutely terrible for you. I can't imagine how it feels to have to put all of this hard work in for this book, because I do believe Audra did work hard on The Age of Scorpius, And for everyone to basically hate it, I can't imagine how she feels, and I did indeed feel terrible for her. And honestly, I do actually still feel absolutely awful for her. I can't imagine how I'd feel if it was me in this situation. However, the ending of that particular video from Audra's TikTok, and I guess I'm not really sure what she's trying to say with like act like an artist, be an artist. It's kind of confusing to me, that part of the video personally, because where art is concerned, even if you're also an indie author, that doesn't mean you have to like other indie stuff. So I'm not really sure what she means. Is it great to support each other and not push down other people? Absolutely. But if someone doesn't like something, then I don't think they should lie about it, basically. So like, that's one thing I don't like to do when I review books on TikTok and here on YouTube, is if I don't like a book, I will say so. I'm not just going to say I like it because that author is small. So I'm not really, like, I do understand the general sentiment of support other people, particularly support other artists, particularly with the rise of AI, but I don't think you should just support someone for the sake of it if their work isn't good and you don't like it, you know? However, I also feel like it goes without saying, Audra absolutely shouldn't be bullied or doxxed. That's awful. Don't do that. Absolutely not. I don't care how much you hated this book. Don't do that, that's absolutely horrific. However, I just want to note the text on screen at one part of this video. Up to this point, I wrote multiple books. I had beta readers. I was in critique groups. I completed a creative writing minor. I have attended conferences. I have written every day since I was 12. I have been contracted by a literary agency and worked with developmental editors there. I made the choice to go independent when my literary agency dropped all their sci-fi fantasy writers. I could have found a new agent, but I was ready to share my story. I then hired 2 skilled industry editors, both developmental and copy. I listened, I spent hours revising and changing. I wrote pages upon pages of changes from editorial notes. I got on a call with my editor, I discussed them, I changed more. I looked at and incorporated my copy editor suggestions. I paid 2 proofreaders, I proofread. I had a team that loved it, that understood. I marketed that I wanted to break away from the industry I felt trapped under. I can't quite read the ending of it due to the stuff on the screen on TikTok, since I couldn't actually download these videos, I had to screen record them. So Audra basically says though that the book has gone through what sounds like pretty extensive edits before this draft of it was published. Firstly, spelling and grammar edits, proofreading, but also developmental and copy edits. And if honestly, just as a general note, if you are planning on self-publishing, I would recommend getting an editor. Loads of them work freelance. I do absolutely think it's necessary, as much as criticism towards your work can be hard to hear. And if it makes you feel any better, authors who are traditionally or indie published, I'm personally indie published, will go through an editing phase. Obviously it's usually with an in-house editor, but it will still happen, it's pretty normal. The draft that gets sent to publishing houses to pitch it to them by agents and stuff is not going to be the draft that gets published. It's going to be very similar, but it will not be the same. That's pretty normal in the industry, so I would recommend getting an editor. But we're going to come back to the edits, or arguably lack that of, in a moment, so put a pin in that. So Audra then made 2 response videos, the first of which I think was pretty good, honestly. I'll play some of it for you, again because they're quite long, I'll edit it for brevity, but the full version will be linked down below.
My name is Audra Winter, and I am going to be redoing this book. I absolutely lost sight of what was most important, and that was delivering my voice and my story in the best way that I could. I did myself an injustice, and I did my story an injustice, but I don't give up. I especially don't give up on the thing that matters the most to me, and that is storytelling and bringing other people joy. So here is what I am doing to make that right. We're re-releasing the entire thing. I have taken the feedback and the criticisms that I've received, especially in the past week, and I have discussed them and processed them in this time that I was not on the app, and I genuinely so badly want to make this the best that it can be. I am recruiting a copy editor and a proofreader from my audience, so people that are watching my videos, because I am receiving a lot of wonderful feedback. And I do have a lot of authors and writers and editors who follow me, and there are people who want to help, and I'm seeing that and I'm recognizing that. So I want to be able to find someone from my readers and from the people who are supporting me to be on my team. I will be opening auditions for that on Tuesday. It's literally just going through the first chapter of the book and marking it up as much as you can. We're going to be looking at the different styles, and then we'll be doing onboarding by the end of next week. Some of the things that we have already looked at changing and have plans to change would be the narration style and the voice, exposition, obviously copy edits and line edits and removing those errors, content addition and revision, more charts and guides, and dialogue. While we're doing these revisions, it is only fair to you guys to be able to see what improvements we're making if you want to continue continue to support us or be like, nope, this isn't my thing. So we are going to post those revised chapters as we're going up until December on Patreon for free. So free to public, free to access. We're not going to be doing all of them, but definitely enough for you to get a good idea of what are the improvements that we're making, what are the things that we're changing, and what direction are we going into. Once we are fully confident that this is what we are going to put out to the world, we are offering anybody who has bought any version of the book a free digital copy. You can go onto our website and we have a form for that, where if you want to put in the order number from whatever platform you bought the book on, you can put yourself on a list to receive a digital copy once we finished and have that ready in December. On top of that, there were 5,000 excited readers for this hardcover and for this book. And so we're going to redo the hardcover. We're going to redo the limited edition hardcover. We're going to do another hardcover run of 5,000, and it's going to be released in December as well. For those of you that bought the hardcover already, we are offering a 50% discount on a $30 book. The price is going up a little bit because we're improving the quality of the book as a whole, not just the writing. We're adding more art and more involvement from a whole creative team, and the features of the book, different cover, different interior, different end pages, sprayed edges. We're going all out. I am somebody who is neurodivergent, and I was afraid of being interpreted wrong because of this, because I do know that I write in a different voice, in a different style, in a different perspective. I had intended this book to be read that way, but it did not land at all in the way that I was expecting. That does not mean I am removing that identity or that representation from my text. I am going to do it better so it matches what my audience's expectations are. The amount of misinformation and rumors that we saw spread in the matter of hours was absurd. There are literal hundreds of people cheering on my downfall, cheering on the failure, cheering on the death of my success, and that hurts. Hearing things like I'm a scam, or that I'm just a marketing ploy, I'm trying to get money from people, that hurts on a level that runs deep, runs very, very deep for me, because I get on here to talk about my passion. Nothing matters in the world more to me than just being able to tell stories. I will continue to do the best that I can with this, and I want to continue pursuing my dreams. All of this is strengthening me, and it has pushed me to stand up. It has made me aware that I can survive the worst case scenario. I can continuously push through difficult things, and I'm going to. Thank you for everybody who has been supporting me and the feedback, because I'm getting back up and I'm doing it better, and I'm going to do it the best that I can with every single thing that I have in me, and get you guys a version of the book that you want.
So like I said, I don't think that was a bad response at all. Audra has realised what she needs to do, and she's going to show some revised chapters for free on Patreon. Although, put a pin on the Patreon too, because I'll come back to that as well. And I also don't think, there's a lot of people saying that she's an industry plant. I don't think she is, or anything like that. I do believe Audra has indeed wanted to be an author her entire life. She's had an idea for a book that a lot of people liked and was lucky about the content creation about it, but has been unlucky with execution of the writing in said book. Although that being said, even though I did by and large like this response, I don't think it's a good idea to basically audition members of your audience as copy editors. And honestly, I'd only do that if there were members of my audience, like I knew there were people in my audience who are professional editors, you know, not just nice, well-meaning people who wanted to help. However, Audra did post another video right after this one, and in this one Audra does confirm they are getting editors who do have experience. Thank God.
We are bringing on an in-house copy editor and proofreader. This is not just somebody from our audience. We are only hiring somebody with a lot of experience in editing, preferably somebody who has been both in self and traditional publishing, and we're going through a lot of applications. That copy editor will also do some line edits, and after they're done with that, we're going to do a one-on-one discussion and apply those changes.
However, and these clips are all taken from the same video, which will be linked down below, Audra in this video does talk a lot about art.
The second step that I am taking in this revision process is essentially reverse engineering a writing process. One of my employees is my secondary developer, Solly. I actually get on a call almost every single night for about 3 hours with Solly. And what we are doing is before I start revisions after the team meeting, we then have another brainstorming session. And this brainstorming session is me verbally describing the outline for the revised chapter that I'm doing. So going over scenes, going over plot, and I'm working through them with my words, actively talking. And Solly helps me to develop, change ideas, shift things around. But what Solly also does is Solly is an artist. And so Solly will literally draw these things while I am outlining and do some concept art for this chapter. I am then writing descriptions based off of that art, which is really, really cool because it's fun to have visuals while you're writing. And the fact that I can have visuals of the things that I am writing is even cooler. You heard me mention in the last video that there would be some changes in the artistic content in the book itself. And that is because that core team of people that help with feedback and making that outline, while I am revising and while the copy editor is editing, those people love doing the art for this thing. So they're just gonna go in and do some really cool things that involve artistic storytelling along with literature-based narrative. So we're incorporating elements such as different like page borders, and we're doing that because there are scenes in the book where like it's a recollection of a memory, and so making that obvious by like art and outlining the page is going to be really cool. We're basically approaching this in the most artistic and creative way that we can, between how can we best revise this book based upon what it needs, what do we need for this book, what have we heard from people, and then what can we do to make it extra special and make that storytelling really shine as a team. And so that is how I built that 8-step revision process.
And okay, I understand that 1, Audra has clearly got a huge passion for her world and her story, and 2, also wants to involve her team of artists that she's been able to establish. But she talks about using art to make the storytelling shine. And in my opinion, as a published author, the main thing that will make your storytelling shine will be your storytelling, as in the writing of the book. So for example, one of my favourite fantasy book series ever is the Mistborn trilogy. I haven't got around to reading the ones after it, I've only read the trilogy for now. And I think they're amazing, they're so well written, the world, the characters, the plot, everything about them. If you haven't read them yet, what are you doing? Read them. They're so good. The storytelling is amazing. And would I love to get, because like the Well of Ascension, the second one, is my absolute favourite one from the 3, would I love to get like lovely special editions of them that maybe do have illustrations of them? I absolutely would. However, I wouldn't have wanted an edition like that if I had hated the series in the first place, if it had been written badly. If it had bad writing, I wouldn't have fallen in love with the world and the characters and stuff. Do you see what I mean? Like, the writing should shine first, and if people really enjoy it, then maybe we can revisit it and do a special edition. But the focus for a novel should be the writing. Honestly, at this point now that Audra basically does own like an art studio with writing on the side by the sounds of it, it might be better to make like something like a graphic novel, I don't know. Like, she does allude to how important the visuals are in this video.
I want my novels to be a blend of narrative prose and artistic storytelling. My chapters are written out like a normal fiction book, but there are also critical parts of the story that are told by illustration.
Like, I'm not sure, but perhaps you shouldn't have important moments only shown through illustration. First of all, not everyone can get stuff like that from illustration, and second of all, it also does make the book inaccessible to those who are maybe listening to it on audio, if that is one day going to become an option for the book. Like, if you want to take the plot and the world of your book and have more illustrations with them, that's great. Not saying you can't do that, books like that exist, but it seems it's a lot to do as well for this re-release, and also a very different direction, which again, that's fine to do, it's fine to change direction, but it's a lot considering the starting point, you know? Anyway, despite Audra's responses, there was also a response that was deleted that I couldn't find. I'd heard, like, one of the main rumours I'd heard was that people on TikTok were saying that Audra's editors had basically recommended her edits, but she hadn't done them because the book blew up and then she established the LLC and she was just busy doing stuff. So she didn't have the time. However, I couldn't find any proof. And I've watched a lot of Audra's videos and they're all very long, really. So I couldn't find her say it anywhere. So I didn't know if she said it in a comment that I couldn't find, or maybe on another platform. However, in a video from Jordan, you don't know who I am, but your videos have been wonderful for gathering information for this video. Thankfully, Jordan shed light on this because I thought I was going insane. I could not find anything to back this up.
First one is Audra and her new editor, Caitlin, blaming her former editors for how bad the first version of The Age of Scorpius was. This originally happened in a post that's now been deleted from Audra's TikTok. It was one of the editor Q&As that they have, well, up until that point were posting weekly. In these Q&As, the new editor, Caitlin, is taking questions presumably from the audience and answering them for everybody to see. The question that was asked, that I'm assuming is the reason they've now deleted this video, I could only find it by searching through other people's TikTok commentaries on this whole situation. So I'll post a screenshot so that you know that I'm not just talking out of my ass, but it's not, you can't really see everything. So I'm gonna read what it is. The question that Caitlin was asked was, quote, "What steps is this editor taking to avoid the previous editor's mistakes? 2 former editors signed off on the previous edition and let it go to print despite its rough condition. What is this editor doing to make sure she doesn't make the same mistake?" Now, I have an issue based off this question alone. I'm not sure if this was actually a question that they were asked or if it's one that Audra and the team felt the community would want answers to, but the way this question is worded is already shunting blame off onto the old editors by saying they, quote, "let it go to print." That was not the editor's doing. That was your doing, Audra. You let it go to print, and you have previously said that you were told it wasn't ready and that you got too busy handling pre-orders to properly edit the final version. You have said that, but now we're trying to rewrite history. Now, Caitlin's answer to this question was, quote, "I have looked over the edits from both editors. While both editors' comments were correct, neither of them were nearly as thorough as they needed to be." Now, this is just straight up saying that the editors didn't do a good job, which is wild to say publicly. And when it's pretty obvious that editing itself was not the only problem here. And even if it was, this is not the way to handle that. It's incredibly unprofessional and just looks slimy, for lack of a better word.
So Caitlin, the new editor for The Age of Scorpius, basically seems to pass the blame off, basically saying that the previous editors are to blame for the state of the book, the original published draft of the book, despite Audra having admitted she received those edits and reportedly just didn't have time to implement them, which Jordan shows the screenshots of in her video. However, there is more.
In addition to this Q&A, at the time that this Q&A was posted, the Goodreads listing for The Age of Scorpius was changed so that in addition to Audra's name as author, the editors' names were listed in the byline, which I've not seen before. I went to go investigate this while writing the script for this video, and it has been changed. The Goodreads listing now has Audra as author and lists the illustrators by name. So I also could only find the old version through searching through other people's commentary. Clearly, the rewriting of history is continuing. I just think it's so gross to publicly shame in this way, especially in the indie publishing world where I'm sure your reputation is everything. That's how you make your money. So for those 2 editors that have now been publicly thrown under the bus, I can't imagine what that could potentially do to their livelihood. I just think it's incredibly irresponsible. If you had a business issue with these people, handle it like adults, not in the public eye. But like I said, I don't think this is their fault. I don't think you can blame them for this at all. And I'm not gonna lie, I do judge both Audra and whoever this new editor Caitlin is. I can't imagine doing this. To come out publicly and say things like this is just incredibly weird to me. I think this is just another instance we're seeing where Audra has no ability to take blame or take accountability for her actions. Even on her Patreon, in the posts where there is references to the failures of the original version of the book, it's not written by her.
So basically what Jordan is saying here, I think, is that by Audra attaching X person's name to the book on Goodreads, they are basically also really responsible for the state of this book, not just Audra. It's not just Audra at fault here, it's all these other people in addition. However, in this video from Audra, she does say she received the edits, but due to the virality of her videos and lack of time, she didn't have time to carry out said edits.
I realized a severe and critical error in my book. During the process of being thrown into the position as a business owner in April and May, I was also in the final copy edit and proofing stages of the book. From the amount of shock and exhaustion I was going through, I failed to give that critical process my full attention and fell short without even realizing it until after the book was in people's hands and this all started.
So she does take some accountability, but I'm unsure which video was posted first since one is no longer up, so I'm not sure what came first, either Audra admitting it or them being like, actually, no, it was their fault, or the other way around, so I'm not entirely sure. However, there is still more.
The second thing I need to talk about is probably the worst part to me and is the reason that I made this video. There have been changes to the World of Guardian Patreon. Originally, when this whole shit show started and Audra came out and said, here's our editing and revision schedule and we're going to share everything with you publicly on Patreon, all of those posts were free. And it was supposed to be a show of good faith, I would assume, to the community. Here, have a glimpse into the work we're doing to prove that there is work being done to re-release this book. Now it has been announced that those writing updates we were getting will be locked behind a $2 per month paywall. You must become a star to be able to get the juiciest bits of writing updates for the World of Guardian. And if you're feeling particularly generous, you can pay $5 a month to be a moon. At first I was confused about the transparency with the editing and revision process, but now it makes sense. It's another way to make money. And I'm really tired of talking around it at this point.
So in the video I played for you earlier, Audra was saying like she was going to post chapters on Patreon as a show of good faith, like, you can trust me, this is for free, you can see the improvements we are making.
While we're doing these revisions, it is only fair to you guys to be able to see what improvements we're making if you want to continue to support us or be like, nope, this isn't my thing. So we are going to post those revised chapters as we're going up until December on Patreon for free. So free to public, free to access. We're not going to be doing all of them, but definitely enough for you to get a good idea of what are the improvements that we're making, what are the things that we're changing, and what direction are we going into.
Obviously they weren't going to post the whole book, but some of it to show you the work that was going on. So it doesn't really seem that great, so I decided to take a look at their Patreon to check it out myself, and there are indeed 2 tiers as Jordan mentioned. So we have Star for £2.50 a month, it's in pounds because I'm British. Just here to watch the Age of Scorpius blossom in its 2nd edition. This is a tier for you. Complete access to our weekly writing and story updates on Tuesdays. You'll learn what we're working on and how we're approaching the revisions. And when we're ready to share sneak peeks, you'll get them. Membership benefits, weekly story updates. And then we have Moon, which is £6 a month, which is apparently the most popular one. Can't get enough of Guardian. In addition to the writing updates, $5 patrons enjoy exclusive lore drops about the world every Thursday and behind the canvas art process deep dives every Saturday. Membership benefits, weekly story updates, weekly behind the canvas process dives. And I also found a post that basically announced said tiers. So this is announcing the $2 tier. Hey folks, we're rolling out a $2 tier and some fancy names. Star for $2 and Moon for $5. This new tier will have complete access to the Tuesday writing updates. Don't worry, there will still be a free section to update for everyone to see. However, we'll be reserving the juiciest bits for $2 patrons. If you're really interested in the revision process and would like to help keep us afloat during a slow sales period at the end of our book stock, consider signing up. World building and art process posts are still reserved for $5 patrons. Thanks everyone. 9.4 edit. Olivia asked for more details regarding the difference between the free and $2 tiers, so here's the breakdown. Free members get the overview summary of what we're working on. Paid members get the details. This will include, depending on the update, specific plot points, events, character moments that are changing, notes from the editor, excerpts and outlines from the author, and sneak peeks at a new art that's going into the 2nd edition. 9.5 edit. Just asked how many more chapters will be freely available. Chapters 2 and 3 will be publicly available in full. $2 patrons may get sneak peeks during the process, but once the first revision pass is complete, anyone will have access to read them. Beyond that, we're not fully settled. Further chapters will likely be released before the book itself, but those would most likely be for patrons only. So it does sound like those who have joined the Patreon for free, like me, in order to look at the posts, we will eventually be able to see the chapters, but at the minute seems only confirmed chapters 2 and 3. And honestly, I understand not posting the whole novel there. I don't think anyone was expecting that, especially if you're looking to sell this. Posting it for free on the internet then expecting people to buy it isn't a smart move. I don't think anyone was expecting that. It does sound a bit like Audra was backtracking on what they were saying, but hopefully things will become clearer as the book goes through its editing process, and maybe other chapters will be uploaded. Again, I'm not expecting to post the full thing, that's not a sensible decision, but perhaps more than at the minute chapter 1 is up, but maybe just more than the first 3, maybe like then chapter 6 and then chapter 12. I don't know how many chapters are in it. However, Caitlin, this new editor, did upload a post on the Patreon talking about the next steps. 826 writing update. Hey everyone, Caitlin here. Today marks the first writing update, where you'll get weekly updates on the progress Audra and I are making on the book. First off, I want to mention the Q&A we posted yesterday. I answer questions over on TikTok for those interested. This weekend, we released the current iteration of Chapter 1. All chapters are subject to change as we continue working on the new draft, but I'm working closely with Audra to better establish the voice and improve the prose. Guardian is a post-apocalyptic society, and environmental themes are core to the story. That doesn't come across in the original edition, which was sorely lacking in descriptions of setting. On that note, here are some key elements I'm focusing on for this round of edits. Characterization. The characters are the driving force of the book, but they were not properly developed in the first edition of it. We'll be tackling character arcs, relationships, and making them 3D. Setting. I want to ensure that readers understand the world in terms of its geography, politics, religion, magic, etc., and assure that scenes are described. The first edition didn't take the time to reinforce world-building elements, and many scenes suffered from White Room syndrome. Believability. Suspension of disbelief is crucial for speculative fiction, and the lack of logic, convenient timing of certain plot elements interferes with the reader's ability to immerse themselves in the story. There are, of course, more things we will need to tackle, but for now, I want to ensure the story has a proper foundation. Readers should have an idea of what to expect by the end of Act 1. I completed my first read-through of the novel and have discussed my thoughts with Audra. We are actively discussing her goals for this book so that we can find ways to achieve them. I want her to deliver on what she's promised her readers, and I'm focusing on fleshing things out. In terms of actual writing, Audra has completed an updated version of Chapter 1 and is currently working on drafting Chapter 2. Using my feedback, she's completed a general outline, and we are working on an in-depth outline so that we can plan out where and when she'll be incorporating details about plot, character, setting, etc. Each chapter should have multiple functions rather than just moving the plot forward. I'm pushing her to consider what character details she can show, what bits of world building she can incorporate, how she can foreshadow various elements of the story. There's been a vast improvement between the first version of Chapter 1 and where we're at now, but there's still a long way to go. Additionally, this time around, Age of Scorpius will have beta readers. Audra failed to include proper beta readers for the first edition, when beta feedback would have indicated the book was nowhere near ready. That's all for this week. By next week, we should have the next draft of Chapter 2 done, as well as a thorough outline. See you in September. And honestly, however you feel about Caitlin because of what they said regarding the previous editors, at least this update is about the writing, and I'm not an editor, but in my opinion, it does sound like it's, going in the right direction. Like I said before, one of Audra's response videos did have a very heavy focus on art. However, whilst that does seem important to Audra, the writing is what readers care about primarily. Art is a nice addition, but you should focus on the writing. So I'm glad that this update was more focused on the writing and didn't really seem to mention art anywhere. However, on the Patreon, like I said before, they have uploaded already a revised draft of Chapter 1 on the Patreon. It's likely not the final draft, so let's read like the first 2 pages together. I won't make you sit through all of it because I don't want to read out an entire book chapter. Chapter 1. Since the foundation of Guardian, Conviction Woods was believed to be uninhabitable, yet within its reach withered the ghosts of the last war and their rain-hushed cries. Evidence of human presence dwelled in the depths of the forest, where spears and shield rusted among flourishing sword ferns. When wolves howled with wartime grief, the trees whispered a silent truth. Conviction Woods wasn't always cursed, for if it had been, the spirits of its soldiers would not live beneath mangled roots grown from the old blood. I lingered at the woodland's northwest edge, trees lining the dirt road that divided Conviction and Assidious' territory. Before me, a faint shimmering wall of gold, green and silver, light flickered and swirled between the trunks that marked the boundary of the woods. Enchanted paper lanterns, their flames undying, were draped over branches. They warned outsiders of the danger within, in case the long list of obituaries hadn't already scared them away. The tales of Conviction Woods were tales of death, told only by the survivors who could not look away when the forest seized their companions. Stories said that the forest would hum through needles and bark, whistles weaving between branches to warn of the wolf pack that lived within. When grief fell heavy upon a teller's words, they'd wave their hands and arms to represent the plumes of black smoke that transformed wolf into beast. The monster devoured its prey in the metaphysical realm before devouring them in the physical realm, baring teeth that could rend soul from flesh, flesh from bone. Conviction Woods made no exceptions for its carnage or curse. But I knew that wasn't true, for the wolves had taken me into their pack. So you can find the rest of chapter 1 on Patreon. I'm not sure I can share links from Patreon, but I'll try. But it's free to sign up if you want to find that. I haven't paid any money and I still got to read it. And I've only read that opening. I haven't gone and read the rest of the chapter. And obviously I haven't read the original draft that was published. I'm only reading this one. But it is certainly, for like the opening 2 pages, quite a lot at once. Whilst I understand that information is obviously important for the world, it is absolutely very wordy. I definitely think it could benefit from shorter sentences and maybe some action to break it up. Like, for example, nothing actually happens in what I've just read. It's telling about the woods. It's static. There's nothing actually happening. And just maybe less detail, like in that first paragraph. There are only 3 sentences and those 3 sentences are all very, very long. So it's not bad, I just think it needs to be made tighter, basically. You know what I mean? Like, the woods are bad, let's go. We don't need that much, you know? So they've started the editing process. However, Jordan also found this listing for the World of Guardian, the name of the LIC, and the World of Guardian, where the Age of Scorpius is set, on a website for angel investors. Now, I couldn't actually find this website myself. I'm not sure if it's only accessed by people in the US, but Jordan is showing it in this video.
Welcome back. Bet you didn't expect to see me so soon. This is a posting from angelinvestor.us or something. It's a like Kickstarter-esque platform, but specifically for people looking for angel investors to invest a large amount of money, I assume. And this is a post from the World of Guardian on this website. So let's break this down. The synopsis says, a multimedia literature-driven creative studio and publishing imprint, interesting, with a team of 20 plus illustrators, musicians, animators, and editors. Interesting that all of those came before editors. And designers aiming to bring fantasy stories to life by merging the publishing and art industries. Okay. Here is their selling points. They made $200,000 from April to July solely on the pre-order of 7,800 sold products through the TikTok shop in a way that we all at this point assume is breaking TOS, but okay. Thousands of people are watching us and awaiting our next project. That is not why we're all watching you, bestie. No. Experienced team of creatives fighting for independence in the arts. That much may be true. The other people on your team, I don't believe that's why Audra's in this at this point. They are asking for $10,000 per investor and a total of $70,000. So they're looking for 7 investors to invest, well, at least 7 investors to invest $10,000 a piece.
So in general terms, looking for an angel investor is normal, especially if you own a business. There's nothing wrong with that. And I did also find another screenshot from the angel investor site. Again, I can't access it, and this is from Kerrigan Legend, and it says, following its release, we had a public uproar to do our next release even better than ever. And I was like, when I read that, and I'm like, you're not wrong. It's true, there was a public uproar, but it makes it seem like there was an uproar because it was so good and everyone's desperate for the next one, and it makes it sound next release as in the sequel to the book or another project entirely, not the re-release of the original because something went wrong. You know what I mean? Like, is it technically true? Yes, but they're kind of omitting the details, you know what I mean? So that is basically all of the information I personally could find, but please let me know if I've missed anything because the situation is quite big. Out of everything I've made videos on, particularly drama and book talk, this is definitely by far the one that took the most time to research. And just in like conclusion, I suppose, I do admire Audra's ambition, but first of all, I feel the initial reception to her book before it released made her feel that the book was better than it actually was. And while as a writer, I definitely think you need to believe your writing is good. Like, I'm not sending out my draft of my novel to literary agents if I think it's bad, because if I think it's bad, why would they think it's good and want to take it on, you know? But Audra seems to have taken this to another level. She does seem to have like come down a bit since all of this happened, but prior to this. I'm not sure if this was her intention, but it did come across as a little bit arrogant and self-aggrandizing. Like I said though, after all this has happened and like kind of reality seems to have hit Audra, she seems to have been like, oh, okay, we need to do more work on this, which is good. And in general, I do still feel supremely bad for her. I can't imagine how she's feeling when anyone releases a book, whether it's indie published, self-published, or traditionally published. Of course, the author wants people to like it, but for something to basically be so universally hated by the sound of it must be so heartbreaking for Audra, especially when this is her dream and she's also autistic. This is also her special interest. Whilst I love writing, I wouldn't describe writing or any of my worlds as a special interest to me. They're just something cool. I 100% get where she is coming from. And then she also has a business built around it as well. But at the same time, she did have all these editors who I'm assuming she was paying, and she didn't listen to them, you know, and the book ended up being in the state it was, reportedly, because of that partly. And it did seem when a lot of the backlash was happening that Audra was failing basically to take accountability and was framing a lot of it as bullying. And don't get me wrong, there have definitely been some harsh comments I've found, like I read out on the Goodreads before. There have been harsh comments on TikTok as I've just been scrolling through and watching her stuff for this video. And it did seem at the start that Audra was incapable of listening, but now she has seemed to realise the gravity of the situation and how severe it is. She's like, yeah, I need to change this, which is good. However, all of that being said, is it going to be too late now though? I don't know, I really hope not. Despite everything that's happened, I do believe Audra has good intentions, and perhaps that's really easy of me to say because first of all, I didn't hear about Audra and her book until all of this had already happened, pretty much. Like I said, that long video, which was her first initial response to this, was the first one I saw of this whole situation. I have no idea who she was prior to this, and I also didn't buy a copy of the book, so perhaps it's easy for me to say since I wasn't following this, I didn't, you know, give any money to her or whatever, but I do think she had good intentions going into this, but because the quality of the book just wasn't there, it didn't end up going well. But in the end, I do hope she's okay. I can't imagine how I'd feel if this was me right now. Absolutely not. I would be in tears. I'd be inconsolable. And I do hope that she will be able to come back from this, but it does seem definitely like her reputation will have taken a hit. Even if she is posting some free chapters on Patreon, will people be able to trust her? I don't know. I guess I can't really speculate to that. It's only something we'll find out as time goes on. But honestly, after all of this, I am actually quite interested in reading the revised version when it comes out again. So perhaps we'll do a video on this. I'm not sure there's going to be many more updates to this situation unless something else comes out other than the revising stuff and posting it on Patreon. But I will keep an eye on it. And we'll talk about it again if I think there's something interesting. But I do actually want to read it despite all of that. Anyway, I would absolutely love to know what you think of this situation, particularly if you've been following it for a while, or if indeed you did buy it and you have read it. I'd love to know what you think of it, considering that as well. Like I said, I know I'm coming at this without really knowing much about the situation before it happened. You know what I mean? So I'd love to know what all of you think, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!